The House will come to order. This morning, the pledge will be said by Elizabeth Olivas from Thornton High School and Cesar Garcia Jr. from Mapleton Expeditionary School of Arts from Thornton, Colorado, grandchildren of Speaker Ruben Valdez.
Can you join us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Randall, please call the roll.
Representatives Arndt, Baisley, Benavides, Byrd, Bockenfeld, Buck, Buckner, Buentale, Caravale, Carver, Catlin, Coleman, Coleman,
Yeah, you can excuse them all.
Coleman excused. Cutter, Duran, Escar, Exum, Froelich, Garnett, Geithner, Gonzalez Gutierrez, Gray, Gray, excused. Harrod, Holtorf, Hooten, Hooten, excused. Humphrey, Jackson, Jackson, excused. Harquez Lewis, Kennedy, Kip, Kraft Arp, Landgraf, Larson, Liston, Montine, McCluskey, McKean, McLaughlin, Melton, Michelson Janae, Mullica, Neville, Pelton, Ransom, Rich, Roberts, Sane, Sandridge, Singer, Sirota, Sirota, Snyder, Soper, Soper, Sullivan, Tipper, Titone, Valdez A, Valdez D, Representative Coleman is present. Van Winkle, Van Winkle, Weissman, Will, Williams, Wilson, Young. Madam Speaker.
Okay.
Oh, you do?
With 60 present, 3 excused, and 2 vacant, we have a quorum. Representative Valdez A.
Madam Speaker, I move that the Journal of Friday, January 24th, 2020 be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk.
Members, you have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All opposed say no. It just never gets old. The motion passes. Announcements and introductions. Any announcements? Representative Herod.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I can't hear. Madam Speaker.
Sure. Members, let's hear announcements and introductions. Representative Herod.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Finance Committee, we will be meeting today at 1:30. We have moved our committee room to 112. I want to give a special thank you to Chair Roberts and Chair Jackson for allowing some flexibility for our members who have a hard time getting across the street. We'll meet at 1:30. Thank you.
Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, you know for the last couple of weeks we were hounding you about donations, and I said we've got to get more dollars. Guess what? We should have had more dollars. We bid $13,500 on one steer. That's $13,500. Lost that one. Watched another one sell for $16,500. So then we decided we'd better become good shepherds, and we bought a Colorado sheep for $7,500 and half of another sheep. So those were both Colorado young people, and we'll be talking about those here momentarily. But your contributions went a long ways, but I'm telling you, when the grand champion sells for $155,000 and a hog sells for $100,000, next year we got to come up with more money. Thank you.
More money, more money.
Representative Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As you heard Representative Herod say, Energy and Environment Committee members, we have a brand new room. You can fight over the spaces that you want to sit in. We are now in room 107. We will be meeting at 1:30. We've got 2 bills, House Bill 1070 and 1060. Be there.
Representative McKean.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Folks, tonight you can come and talk about tourism over at the Brown Palace Hotel. So it is the Tourism Industry Association of Colorado function. It's at the Brown Palace at 5 o'clock. It would be wonderful to see you all there.
Representative Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First of all, I want to welcome the Routt County 4-H group that is here today, up in the gallery and down here. Thank you for being here. And speaking of agriculture, Rural Affairs and Agriculture Committee, third announcement, we are now meeting in LSB A. That's our new committee room permanently across the street. And we have a committee meeting today at 1:30. See you there.
Representative Michelson, Janae, and McKean.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I'm asking for a moment of joint privilege.
Members, could we please be quiet?
Today is International Holocaust Remembrance Day. Here in Colorado, in this chamber, we tend to commemorate the Holocaust on Yom HaShoah, which is also Holocaust Remembrance Day, how it's been celebrated in the United States for many, many years. This is the 15th year of commemorating Holocaust Remembrance Day internationally, as brought to us by the United Nations and the member states of the United Nations, because today, members, is the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. And as we stand before you today, Representative McKean, who co-primed last year's Holocaust resolution with me, we just want to bring a moment as the rest of the member nations of the world are commemorating International Holocaust Remembrance Day. I meant to bring with me, I had a day where I forgot many things, but I'm going to bring tomorrow my photo album of my first trip to Auschwitz when I was 17 years old. I will leave it on my desk, and I invite all of you to look through the pictures of what did it look like in 1990 to walk on the ground where my ancestors perished.
Representative McKean.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And really, I would ask for a moment of silence. But before you do that, there's a great book of photographs by Frank Capra, who took pictures during World War II. And the very first pictures I saw in that book that struck my soul were the pictures that he took as people were being liberated at Auschwitz. And to understand what horror he met and what horror we met at Dachau, at Auschwitz, at Buchenwald, at all of these sites of extermination. This is why we stop. And I think this is why we pause and we take a moment just to not only remember, to resolve never, ever, ever to let something like this happen again, but go back and look at Frank Capra's photographs. Let's remember, truly remember. And Madam Speaker, may we have a moment of silence?
A moment of silence is granted.
Thank you.
And I just want to add one thing. In case you're wondering, people wonder why I push so hard and why maybe I carry as many bills as I do or care so much about people not dying in our communities. When I stood on the grounds of Auschwitz, we sang a song, and the lyrics were, "For you who died, I must live on." I am driven by that every single day. Now you know my secret. Thank you, members.
Thank you, members. Representative Landgraf.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There's no way to follow that except to say that I am glad they do that. And I actually had a professor in college who had been in one of the camps and had the tattoo on his arm, and he was, well, I won't go into everything he was, but he had suffered terribly. And on a different subject, tonight, you can go have fun at the Kemp Legislative Reception, where Representative Singer and I, who I don't see in here, will be hosting. It is at the, it's at History Colorado. Good thing I came up here. It's at History Colorado, starts at 5 o'clock, and I will see you all there. As you know, the Kemp Legislative Reception is one of our best ones of the year, not to diminish anybody else's, but please be there, and I'll see you there.
Representative Liston.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First of all, a little correction, I believe, to my good colleague, Representative McKean. He talked about the tourism event tonight, and I just wanted to make sure that it's not at the Brown Palace. It is at the Sheraton Denver Downtown Hotel. So y'all should have gotten a card on this so that everybody just doesn't go to the Brown Hotel and find out that the TIAC is not there. So if you're interested in going to the tourism event, it is going to be at the Sheraton Hotel. And Madam Speaker, if I may, on a little more of an upbeat note, you know, we'd had a lot of solemnity here today. I went home over the weekend, and a bit of good news out of our local paper. I noticed that in El Paso County, foreclosures in El Paso County have plunged to a 22-year low, And just to kind of give you an idea, in El Paso County, there were only 228 foreclosures versus 10 years ago, In 2009, there were 5,288 foreclosures. And so we've just made tremendous economic strides and great economic news. And so I also did a little research. This just came out from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. In the United States housing starts, our housing starts jumped 16.9% to an adjusted annual rate of 1.6 million units in December of 2019. That is the largest gain since October of 2016. Single-family homes climbed 11.2%, which is the largest increase since June of 2007. And multifamily homes housing surged almost 30% in December of 2019. Our U.S. building permits, while they fell a little bit in December of 3.9%, they were the highest in over 5 years. The reason I give you this is that, you know, we always talk about housing and housing for young adults and minorities and other people. So these housing starts and the foreclosure rate, this bodes very well for the young people and the minorities who are entering the housing market for the first time. And there's even more good news, good economic news, is that U.S. mortgage rates are now at 30-year mortgage rates are 3.8%. And these are some of the lowest mortgage rates in the last 6 years. So a good shout out and thank you to our great economic entrepreneurs, our home builders, and let's have a good shout out for the Trump economic recovery. Thank you, America. God bless America.
Representative Melton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And while that is great news from this weekend, I'm looking at what's going on Wall Street right now, and that is that the Dow is falling off of a cliff by 400 points. Not to mention that the Dow was down 1% on Friday as well. Maybe the president should do more on negotiating a better China deal so that way we can be insulated from these type of economic bumps in the road, I guess, as you might call it. I know I didn't really see that when Obama was president. Thanks, Obama.
Representative Weissman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I think I'll be joined perhaps by my judiciary colleague. Members, this is an announcement about an informational presentation that some of you and possibly also your aides and interns may be interested in. There will be flyers on everyone's desks later today. This is called Our Courts Colorado. This is an informational type of program that is promoted by the State Court Administrator's Office and one of our justices, Justice Gabriel in particular. It's going to be this Wednesday, the 29th at noon in the recently renovated Old Supreme Court chamber, and this is kind of primer on how our state courts work, how they're different than federal courts, civil versus criminal matters, things like that. Particularly for non-attorney members, it may be of interest if anyone has interns who are looking at law school, who are in law school now, or aides. They may also be interested. So we'll have a few other reminders between now and then. But again, Wednesday, this Wednesday the 29th, 12 noon, Old Supreme Court chamber, if you'd like to learn more about the judiciary in Colorado. Thank you.
Representatives. Everyone is together. Wilson, Holtorf, Pelton, and Buck. And Will. And Valdez. Members, please be quiet. We have a tribute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We do have a tribute this morning, and I would ask it to be read at length.
The Colorado House of Representatives convened in the 72nd General Assembly hereby extends sincere commendations to Colorado 4-H Youth Development. The Colorado State House of Representatives is proud to recognize the Youth Development Branch of Colorado 4-H for their work with over 107,000 Colorado youth through the guidance of more than 11,000 volunteer leaders. 4-H grows young people with essential life skills such as confidence, courage, resilience, and curiosity who are empowered and prepared for life today and tomorrow. Colorado 4-H returns $45 million annually to the Colorado economy, plus $31 million annually in added value of volunteer time contributions, resulting in a tenfold return on investment over the cost to conduct the program. The Colorado State House of Representatives congratulates 4-H for providing a wealth of opportunities for young people to acquire decision-making, leadership, and communication skills benefiting the people of the great state of Colorado. On request of Representative Jim Wilson, given this 27th day of January 2020, State Capitol in Denver.
Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, you may be seated except for those of you that actually were members of 4-H. Remain standing for a second, would you please? There we go. There are a few members in here that were. Now you may all be seated. Thank you very much. Colleagues, we have today with us several members of 4-H from across the state, and my colleagues up here will help to recognize those. But as we start, you have the stuffed bunnies and dogs and chickens and whatever on your desk. Those are a part of 4-H, and recognizing that, we just finished the National Western Livestock Show. 4-H is a very big part of that. These young people are the future of our country, folks. So for those of you that may live in urban areas, you say we really don't have any 4-H people around us, so we're really not that concerned about those young people. Let me tell you something. Your children or your grandchildren may fall in love with one of these people and marry them, so you better pay attention to what's going on with this program. It affects all of us, okay? So we have with us those that are dressed in, I'm going to call it pink shirts, are state officers. So if all of our state officers would please rise and be recognized. There we go. There are some that are in what I will call the blue shirts. Those are our shooting sports ambassadors from around the state. So if they would please stand, there's some back there. And the ones with the green lanyards are from Fremont County, one of my counties. We have 15 clubs in Fremont County. So Fremont County 4-Hers, please stand and be recognized.
Representative Valdez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I also want to acknowledge some 4-H students from all the way from Huerfano, Pueblo County, and the San Luis Valley that are here today. Thank you for being here, and please stand up if you're here. So, thank you.
Representative Pelton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I do know that Cheyenne County is represented today with a couple of the 4-H members, and there may be others from my district, but Cheyenne County is kind of the redheaded stepchild of the Eastern Plains. Sometimes we're with the Southeast District, sometimes we're with the Northeast. 4-H, we're with the Southeast. So thank you. Glad you guys are here.
Representative Holtorf.
Madam Speaker, thank you. I also want to thank all the 4-H youth who've attended the leadership conference over the weekend and helped to build your leadership skills. As I told some of you out in the hallway, I was in 4-H for 10 years. I was a club president when I was a senior in high school. I also was a club leader in my county, in Washington County. I know the importance of this program, both for urban and rural members, because 4-H is everywhere. County cooperatives provide administrative and leadership support, and CSU is the university that supports our 4-H in the state. We've got many officers from members from House District 64, Baca County, Bent County, Las Alamos County. If you kids would please start standing up. Kiowa County, Elbert County, Lincoln County, Washington County. Did I get 9 counties? We have the largest House district in the state. And for all you folks in House District 64, you kids, I hope someday that you will be inspired to maybe serve in this great esteemed body. And you never know where you'll end up in life. And I will tell you, 4-H is a great organization that provides great leadership for our youth. Thank you very much, and please give these folks, these kids, a round of applause.
Representative Will.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's an honor to serve with you.
It's an honor to serve with you.
I don't want to one-up Representative Wilson, but in Garfield County alone, we have 23 4-H clubs. I represent Garfield, Rio Blanco, and Moffett counties. So anyway, 4-H, stands for head, heart, hands, and health. And I'd like to invite Representative Buck up for the pledge, the 4-H pledge.
Representative Buck.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. So all the wonderful 4-Hers, and former 4-Hers, can we all please stand? I went through 4-H, and it was a wonderful, wonderful program. So let's start with, I pledge my head to clear thinking, my heart to better loyalties, my hands to larger service, my health for better living, for my club, my community, my country,
and my world.
Representative Will.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like the Garfield, Rio Blanco, and Moffett County 4-Hers to please stand. I think they're in the balcony here. Let's give them a big hand. Thank you for being here for the 4-H leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Kipp.
And I would like to recognize all of our 4-H kids from over in Larimer County. Could you please stand up and be recognized as well? Thank you for being here today.
Okay, anyone else for 4-H? I have two quick announcements. Representative Liston will replace Representative Rich on State Affairs tomorrow, January 28th, and Representative Exum will replace Representative McCluskey on Rural Affairs and Agriculture Committee today only. Any other? Representative Kraft-Tharp.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Business Affairs and Labor Committee, starting tomorrow morning, we will be meeting in room 107 instead of LSBA to be able to help some of our members who might need some additional help. So remember, Business Affairs and Labor will be in 107, Transportation will be in LSBA. Thank you.
Any other announcements or introductions? Majority Leader Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that we suspend House Rule 39B for the purpose of permitting Amber Valdez's admittance to the House floor on the occasion of her grandfather's memorial.
If there's no objection, House Rule 39B will be suspended. Our next order of business is consideration of memorials. Mr. Randall, please read the title of House Memorial 1002.
House Memorial 1002 by Representative Valdez A., memorializing former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Ruben Valdez.
Representative Valdez.
Madam Speaker, I move House Memorial 1002 and ask that we read at length.
Whereas, our beloved former colleague, Ruben Valdez, departed this life on October 1st, 2019 at the age of 82. And whereas Speaker Valdez was born and raised in Trinidad, Colorado, and was the youngest of 9 children, and whereas when Speaker Valdez was only 9 years old, his father died, and when he was 15, he left school to take a job at the Pueblo Brickyard to help support his mother and his family, and whereas, as a young adult, Speaker Valdez joined the United Steelworkers of America, rising through the ranks and eventually becoming president of Steelworkers Local 5099 in Denver. And whereas Speaker Valdez returned to school and earned his high school diploma through a GED program, and he later became the first member of his family to graduate from college, earning his bachelor's degree in political science at age 37 from Loretto Heights College while serving in the General Assembly. And whereas in 1970, Speaker Valdez was elected to the Colorado House of Representatives representing Denver, and 5 years later, when Democrats took control of the House of Representatives in the wake of the Watergate scandal, he became Speaker of the House. And whereas Speaker Valdez was known for working across party lines and across generations, and in 1975 he worked on a bill to promote bilingual and bicultural education in public schools, which led the Denver Post to run an article praising his efforts and ability to collaborate with others. And whereas after leaving the House, Speaker Valdez served as secretarial representative for the United States Department of Transportation, Region 8, as executive director of the Colorado Department of Social Services, now the Department of Healthcare Policy and Financing, and as Executive Director of the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment. And he also remained active in politics, working as a lobbyist with his granddaughter. And whereas Speaker Valdez was a major presence in Democratic politics for decades, working for Jimmy Carter, Dick Lamb, Ken Salazar, Bill Ritter, and Michael Bennett, among others. And whereas he was a strong advocate for workers, consumer protections, and equity in education, and Denver Public Schools honored him in 2015 by naming a school off of West Evans Avenue after him. And whereas Speaker Valdez was the first Latino House Speaker, and Colorado did not see another Latino House Speaker until 2017. And whereas Speaker Valdez was well respected throughout the Capitol and his presence will be greatly missed, now therefore be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 72nd General Assembly of the State of Colorado that in the death of Ruben Valdez, the people of Colorado have lost a dedicated public servant and an outstanding citizen, and that we, the members of the House of Representatives, do hereby extend our deep and heartfelt sympathy to the members of his family and pay tribute to a man who served the state well and faithfully. Be it further resolved that a copy of this memorial be sent to his granddaughter, Amber Valdez.
Representative Valdez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We have a picture that we'd like to have displayed if possible. The building lost a giant on October 1st of 2019. Speaker Valdez was a trailblazer. What you see in front of you today is his legacy. This amazing group of people would not be here today if not for people like Speaker Valdez. Beyond being an amazing legislator and somebody who really cared about education and the working man, he was first and foremost a family man, and today we're joined by his lovely family. He was a Bronco fan, he was a Rockies fan, he was just about everything that encompasses what it means to be from Denver. And when he entered the political realm, he was new. It was new to see somebody who was Latino around this building. And so today I'd like to share with you a little story that was shared with us about his birthday, which would have been today. So the House used to follow a long-standing tradition that on birthdays, representatives are required to bring a small gift. I don't know what happened to that, but we don't do that anymore. A candy bar or a pack of Lifesavers to place on other members' desks on their birthday. So as it was, as a green, brand new legislator, Representative Valdez at the time had his birthday in the first 3 weeks of the session and decided that he would break with tradition a little bit. So as you may notice today, you have a jalapeno on your desk. He handed out chilies, but they're out of season. But if they were in season, we would have Pueblo chilies for you. And but we invite you all to bite into them to find out if there's a prize. But this really represents a trailblazing spirit that he embodied, the work that he did here in this building, and I think most importantly, at least to me, was the mentorship that he provided to the next generations of Latinos and Latinas that have served in this building, including each and every person that's standing in front of you today. So rest in peace, Speaker Valdez. You're gone, but will never be forgotten, and your legacy is amazing.
So we will have current House members speak first, and then we will move to former members. So Representative Gonzalez Gutierrez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do want to invite somebody else down here, our colleague from Colorado Springs, Representative Williams. Please join us. It's very applicable. I just wanted. So thank you, Madam Speaker. You heard from my colleague talk about a story, and so it's another story from the same book written by Richard Gold, The Life and Times of Richard Castro. And I picked this story because it actually is familiar because it also involves my grandfather. So when Ruben first came into the legislature, recalls Kyle, he had a mustache, just like Corky Gonzalez. And I swear to God, he almost looked like Corky. I thought, oh boy, we are really going to have somebody that is going to raise holy terror around here. But he turned completely around, or rather, the rest of us turned completely around in our attitude towards Ruben. We have tremendous regards for the man. I love this story for a couple of reasons, as I told you earlier. One, Reuben was being mistaken for my grandfather. And two, it's still something that I think all of us kind of encounter today, is that we get mistaken for one another. Right, Senator Gonzalez? I saw you walk in. I still remember the first time I sat down with Speaker Valdez and his granddaughter Amber, and I was really nervous because I was just joining this endeavor of the political world, and I wasn't sure what to expect, and I was meeting the first Latino Speaker of the House, and I was beside myself. And the one thing that I remember about Speaker Valdez is that he deeply cared about the Latino community, about the Chicano community, because when they served in the legislature, they were known as the Chicano Caucus. He knew how to also navigate the complexities of the political world with grace and diplomacy. And from then on, I knew if I had any questions, I could call Speaker Valdez, and he was always available offering guidance and advice. So I want to thank you, Speaker Valdez, and to all those who came before us and fought so that we can stand here before you today with 14 Latino legislators in the Colorado State House. And we will continue the tradition of breaking down barriers and fighting for the people of Colorado. I also want to extend my sincere gratitude to Speaker Valdez's family for sharing your grandfather, your father, your uncle, your brother. And I know that's not easy, but we thank you for sharing his life with us.
Representative Tipper.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As you all know by now, or if you knew already, that Reuben was the first Latino Speaker of the House, but what you may not know is he was also the first Latino Governor of Colorado. So picture with me Reuben Valdez at his home. He's outside mowing the lawn. A security detail shows up at his house, and they say, "Mr. Speaker, the governor," back then I think it was Governor Lamb, "is out of the state. And so is the lieutenant governor. That means you, Mr. Speaker, are the acting governor of Colorado." Pleased as punch, Reuben goes inside, lays down, big smile on his face, which I can just imagine. And then Reuben's wife, Virginia, walks in, and she says, "Reuben, what are you doing? Are you done mowing the lawn?" And he says, with that big smile, "Well, I don't know if you know, but I am the governor of Colorado." Without skipping a beat, Virginia says, "As the Speaker of this House, you go outside and mow that lawn," which he did. So that was the day the governor of Colorado mowed his own lawn. To know Reuben was to know love. Reuben made you feel welcomed, more than that, accepted, valued, and truly inspired to be the best version of yourself you could be. He went out of his way to make people feel included, and from personal experience, it's like he had a knack for figuring out who were the folks that were having a hard time or felt excluded in some way or needed a sense of community, deserved a sense of community. And he was that community. I always got the impression that Reuben wanted very little for himself, but wanted everything for everyone else. He was incredibly generous with his time, generous with his wisdom, very generous with his money. And I remember speaking to one of his daughters after he had passed away, and she said, "We knew that he was generous, but it wasn't until we went through his finances and realized how he quietly gave away so much of his money to the foundations and organizations that he cared about most." He didn't care about titles. He didn't care about money or success. He cared about people. He cared about justice, about humanity and dignity and compassion. And he might not have been that tall, but as Representative Valdez said, Ruben was a giant in Colorado. I'll leave you with a quote that I think captures how so many feel about Ruben, Speaker Valdez, and certainly how I feel. Grief, I've learned, is really just love. It's all the love you want to give, but cannot. All that unspent love gathers in the corners of your eyes, the lump in your throat, and in that hollow part of your chest. Grief is just love with no place to go.
Representative Benavidez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I am probably one of the caucus members who knew Ruben for a long time before I ever came to this chamber. I knew about him since the 70s, and he was always such a hero and a role model for the Latino community. You could not know about him and his accomplishments. But I didn't meet him until I volunteered on a campaign in the 90s. And I remember him as always being a gentleman, being thoughtful in his comments, and always being right in his projections. As I got to know Ruben over the years, I trusted his advice because it came from his experience, but more so because it came from his heart. And it came from his love of our Chicano Latino people. I wasn't until his death that I learned about his personal stories and his many sacrifices. His sacrifices for his family and his community. And one story that stuck with me was that as a child in second grade, he helped a classmate who only spoke Spanish. He would translate for him so he wouldn't get behind in class. And that was an experience that many of our parents experienced. They would go to school. My parents went to school and they spoke Spanish, and teachers all spoke English. And if you didn't have a way to keep up and somebody to help you, you didn't get through. And for Ruben to do that and understand how much he could help people, and that was a hallmark of his whole career. I am honored to know his daughter Peggy and his granddaughter Amber, and to have met many of the other members of the family. Ruben was a man of courage, a truly humble man, a man whose legacy lives on in so many of us. Ruben has walked on, but now he has joined our ancestors who we daily listen to for their wisdom and their guidance. So I ask you to join me in a tradition of many of our cultures, to please stand and join me as we call his name. Ruben Valdez, presente. Thank you.
Members will hold applause during the memorial. Who's next? Representative Caraveo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My predecessor, Joe Salazar, was unable to be here today, so I would like to start by sharing some of his words. How proud Ruben was of us when in 2013, in one session, we moved Colorado from being an immigrant hate state to a state that honored our heritage and all people seeking to live their lives here. He cried with me after session and expressed that this is what our community was waiting for. I think many of us have shared, and I experienced myself when I decided to run for office, having never been in politics, getting to see that there had been a Speaker of the House who was Latino, who was like us as early as the 70s, was such an inspiration. I know that I wasn't aware of that until Representative Intipper had breakfast with him and his granddaughter, Amber Valdez. When you run for office as a minority, sometimes you think you're reinventing the wheel. There's nobody out there that looks like you, that is going through the challenges that you're going through. And to know that there had been somebody as far back as the 70s, before I was born, that had faced these challenges and blazed a trail for all of us who are up here was so inspiring to know that even though I didn't know about him, even though they didn't teach me about him in school, he had been there fighting for people who looked like me. It was a true honor to get to know him, and it's an honor to be in the house that he opened up to us all.
Representative Valdez D.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And it's a true honor not only to know former Speaker Ruben Valdez, to work with him, a humbled individual from Southern Colorado who worked in Pueblo to continue to grow his family. And the legacy that he leaves here today and continues to grow, we honor him, and thank you.
Representative Duran.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You know, the one thing with Ruben Valdez is you always felt like you were the most important person in the room whenever you met with him. When I had decided to run for office and I met with him and Amber to have coffee and breakfast, he was quiet. He listened to what I had to say and looked at me and said, always be true to yourself and remember to collaborate as much as you can. He was strong. He was a friend, he was a mentor, and I'm going to miss him. But I think in everything good that he was, he passed on to his family, and I am so grateful to have you in my life. And Ruben is watching over us, so I know he may be gone, but a piece of him will always be with me in my heart.
Are there any other members? Okay. Representative Valdez A.
Madam Speaker, under Rule 26, I request a recess to allow former members to speak.
All right. I'm sorry. So there are other members standing who don't want to speak, but there may be members in the audience. Are there any other members who would like Representative Herod? Representatives Herod and Coleman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I just wanted to send my appreciation for the work of Ruben Valdez on behalf of the Black Caucus. We stand with the family, with Ruben, in all that he has done. I know that Ruben, when I met with him, Mr. Speaker, when I met with him first about running for office, he was nothing but encouraging. But more importantly, I think as we navigated this building as new members, as young members of color, we had the support of Ruben, even if we were on different sides of the issue. And that just speaks to his character and the legacy that he leaves. And I know that his legacy is also here with us today. Thank you for all that you're doing, and I'm glad to see you in the chamber. Maybe you'll take a seat soon as well. So thank you on behalf of the Black Caucus. We do appreciate you.
Representative Coleman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yeah, that does sound nice. So much has already been said, but one of the things that I've been blessed to be able to do in this work is really get to know not only Ruben, but even more so Amber. You know, one of the things that we haven't had a chance to talk about is that throughout his career, commitment to education was at the forefront of his work, and that's something that's really important to many of us here, all of us here. And in 1975, he successfully spearheaded the Bilingual and Bicultural Education Act. This is a landmark bipartisan legislation for the cultural inclusion of Latino students in Colorado's education system. He always prioritized the educational opportunities of his West Denver constituents in considering any public policy. And today, his legacy is honored by the Ruben Valdez Achievement Campus that was dedicated by Denver Public Schools in 2015 on West Evans Avenue in the heart of Ruben's community. And today it houses two schools, Strive Prep Federal and Strive Prep Ruby Hill, two of Denver's highest performing schools, serving exactly the Latino West Denver students and families that Ruben spent a lifetime defending. And I've known Amber because she also serves as the board president of Strive Prep. The work that she's done is a continuance of the work that Ruben did. And I'm just so grateful to be able to continue to work with her in that capacity. And for what it's worth, I just want to say I'm proud of you. I know how many families you've impacted personally, the work that you do, and I'm really grateful because of the work that he's done and the work that you continue to do is why folks like us end up here at the legislature, because someone took the time to invest in us. So thank you.
Representative Jackson. and then Lontine.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Coleman just really hit the nail on the head. You know, people come into this building for lots and lots of reasons, I think because of their heart and what they want to do for the people of the state of Colorado. And Speaker Valdez invested in all of us because he wanted to continue that legacy of lifting people up and helping them to see that, yes, indeed, they were the right people to come into this building and to fight on behalf of the people of the state of Colorado. He loved this state. He loved everybody in this building, and he continued his fight through us, even when he left this building. And I am very honored to have known him. And thank you so much, Amber, for continuing to help lift all of us up.
Representative Lontine.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Many of you who know me well know that I represent Southwest Denver. My husband actually grew up in that community. He's an actual Denver native. I tell people that. They're like, people aren't from Denver, but he actually is. And he's a Latino. And as a child growing up in the 70s, when Speaker Valdez became head of this body, it made a huge impact on him. He's a Latino, and the community was very much still intact there, and even today. And he remembers that and thought, and this is, I could be anything. If Ruben Valdez can do this, then I can be anything. His impact is still felt through that community. I met Ruben before I even thought about running for office. And when I told, and I didn't realize that my husband even knew that. He's not really been active in politics. I said, oh, I met the former Speaker of the House today, and Ruben Valdez. He was so excited. And he asked me all kinds of questions about him. Later on, after my election, and I began to realize the legacy of Ruben in my community, it really hit me as someone who has done so much work and remembered his roots and tried to make sure that everybody was lifted up. And the Ruben Valdez Achievement Campus is in House District 1, and it continues that legacy today, and I'm so honored to represent a district that remembers his legacy.
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's such an honor to see the Valdez family here today. And when I think of the Valdez family, it's not just by blood, but by tradition. And today's an important day for me as well. 8 years ago today, I was sworn into this chamber on a vacancy. And if you can't tell by the wrinkles on the jacket, I'm actually wearing the same suit. So this is about as fiscally conservative as I get. But I do remember, well, how many of us remember our first day here, right? Eyes as big as saucers, heart pumping, excitement, fear. You never know who you're going to run into and what you're going to be asked for, and you just want to do the right thing. And I remember those that came to lobby me that day because of that. And that sort of almost fight or flight feeling I had dissipated almost immediately when Speaker Valdez came to lobby me on behalf of one of his clients. And the thought that maybe I could actually do something here, that I was a co-equal with someone who was truly a giant. That sense of fear and anxiety went away in a way that makes me want to continue that legacy. And that is what I will remember more than anything else about Speaker Valdez, that if you can take one of the most exciting, most fearful moments and see someone else in that same moment and treat them in a way that reminds them that they have not only an honor and a responsibility, but they can be part of this process too. If we can all continue that tradition, I think our state's going to be in a much better place. And I want to thank the family. And Speaker Valdez will always have a special place in my heart on this day, January 27th.
Majority Leader Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Singer, I wish I could still fit in the suit that I had in my first day here at the Capitol. You know, I don't know if I've seen a memorial like this before, with so many former legislators here, with so many current members coming up and speaking about their interactions with the former representative. This is a pretty special day. The first time I met Speaker Valdez was in 2006. I was volunteering on the Ed Perlmutter campaign. His granddaughter, Amber Valdez, was working on the Perlmutter campaign. And when he walked into the office, and you have to imagine the office, it's in Wheat Ridge. It was sort of an extension of a vet's office. And each big congressional campaign office has its own energy and identity. And it was sort of split into two separate areas. And there's a lot of nooks and crannies and a lot of cubicles, and you try to pack in as many people as you can. And when Speaker Valdez came into the office, a lot of people who knew him got up immediately and went up and were very excited to see him and shook his hand, and he thanked each of them for volunteering on the campaign. I was an expert at fixing the copy machine. And what an expert at fixing the copy machine quickly realizes is who is respected in the political world, because you can watch as the office would shift when he walked into the room. Not only did he take the time to thank each of the people who came up to speak to him, he also went around to each volunteer who was licking envelopes, who was licking stamps, who was making phone calls, who was in that nook and cranny. He even came up to that expert at fixing the copy machine and thanked me for volunteering on the campaign, thanked me for being involved. And it was a moment that I will never forget. Fast forward, I didn't think our paths were going to cross again, but I decided to run for office, and one of the first calls I received was from Amber Valdez, his granddaughter, my longtime friend, saying, Ruben and I would like to sit down with you. We had a great conversation over breakfast at Racine's. Many of his conversations were at Racine's. He loved Racine's. And once I was actually elected, before I came in to serve, we met again. And he said, these are the lessons that you have to remember. Don't hesitate to cross the aisle. Listen to everyone, even if they disagree with you. And take the time to thank the people who help run the institution. The Capitol is a great place. And I said, Speaker Valdez, you taught me the lesson of thanking the people who help at every level over a decade ago. So Ruben, thank you for your service. Thank you for everything you brought to this Capitol. Thank you for raising a great family. You made an impact on so many of us, and I hope one day my memorial is this robustly attended.
Are there any other current members who would like to speak? Representative Valdez A.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Under Rule 26, I request a recess to allow former members to speak.
The House will be in recess. Representative Valdez.
Madam Speaker and members, I would like to introduce former Representatives Fran Coleman, former Representative Norbert Chavez, Speaker Mark Ferrandino, Representative Joanne Groff, Speaker Dickie Lee Hollinghorst, Andy Kerr, Senator Andy Kerr, Speaker Frank McNulty, Representative Dan Pabon, Speaker Andrew Romanoff, and Honorable Mayor Wellington Webb. Also, I see Don Mares and Representative Wilma Webb as well. Oh, and Polly Baca. Sorry about that.
Who amongst that illustrious group would like to go first? Representative Fran Coleman.
Good morning, and Valdez family, I want to extend my sincerest sympathy. I want to share today a kind of a different angle about Speaker Valdez. I didn't meet Ruben first. I met Virginia first. Virginia and I were bowling buddies. And we did a lot of gossiping about those guys that used to go down to the bar and discuss politics. And Ruben was one of those. And, it was friends like Ethel Sandoz and Virginia Sandoval, Virginia Valdez, myself, Ramona Martinez. We knew what the guys were doing. So I absolutely was devastated when Virginia died. And of course, by this time, as couples, we were friends with the Valdezes. And it was a tough time. And so I was one of those women that helped Ruben get through the loss of his wife because I had a personal angle. She was my friend. And so another thing that always inspired me about Ruben is because I was a young single mom, divorced, and still wanting to go to school. And when I learned that he had gotten his degree at Loretta Heights, the University Without Walls, I knew that I could do it too. And he was there, and so was Virginia to encourage that. And so I too am a Loretta Heights graduate, and I don't think I would have started had I not had that Valdez influence. Later, Ruben did become a mentor, did become a guide, but we were always friends first. What I want to share with you today is something that he had shared with me a long time ago, and I had kind of forgotten about it, because we have our families and our friends. But I picked up my newspaper. I only get the paper Denver Post on Sundays. And luckily for the Valdez legend, an article was written about him in November of 2019. And that was was about his brother Paul Horacio, I can't pronounce it either, Valdez, and him being captured by the Germans. He and 7 other soldiers were on their way to a concentration camp on a train, and that train was bombed. And luckily for those 8 American soldiers, they were able to escape and make their way into the mountains. Unfortunately, eventually, they were still captured. There was a woman who was very young and a historian. Her name was Rafaela Cortez, I think is the way you pronounce it. And she wanted to do the history about this capture and what had happened to these American soldiers, even though she was an Italian. And so she was able to put enough of this information together, and out of the blue, in April of 2019, she called the Valdez home. She wasn't even sure she had the right number, and by this time, Ruben was declining quite a bit. And so anyway, she introduced herself. She wasn't sure that she had the right family. She asked him if he was Paul or Paul's brother, and for a long time there was a pause, and then finally Ruben said Horacio, and basically he was pronouncing his brother's name correctly. Ruben was a person who had accomplished a lot, had gotten his degree. He was the youngest of the 9 kids. He saw 4 of his brothers in the military, but he never forgot about la familia. Siempre quería ver su hermano llegar a su tierra. He never forgot about his family. He always wanted to see his brother come home to his country. Didn't totally happen, but at least he was able to complete that. I'm happy to share this article because it's quite long, but I wanted to share that piece because I know it matters a lot to you as a family. And I know it mattered a lot to Reuben because he had shared this a long time ago, but I was glad that the Denver Post helped me remember. Rest in peace, Reuben. Thank you for all the lessons.
Senator Polly Baca.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's always good to be back here at the House, and I'm especially delighted that I was able to be here on this particular day. You might have noticed that I was one of those that stood when you asked for 4-H members, because I was one. 65 years ago, I was a member of an urban 4-H club in Greeley, Colorado, and I learned how to sew, not very well, but I learned how to sew and raise a garden. But I did win an honorable mention at the Weld County Fair for a dress that I made. So I wanted you to know that I really was a 4-H member. And it's a real special honor to be here to remember my friend, Ruben Valdez. I met Ruben actually before either of us was elected to the legislature. He was a leader of the steelworkers, and I had been at a meeting, and that's when I first met him. I think it was probably the late 60s or the early 70s. And when I came home and I was pretty involved in those days, both at the national and state level. But when I was elected to the State House in 1974, that was a big year for us. It really was. 1974, I know a lot of folks call it the Watergate year, but it was also the year that we doubled the number of Latinos that served in the state legislature. We went from 1 in the Senate, Roger Cisneros, to 2 with Paul Sandoval. And in the House, we went from Ruben Valdez and Leo Lucero to Rich Castro and myself. We were both elected in 74. So it was an exciting time. But what was even more important was that I had the honor of voting for Ruben Valdez for Speaker of the House of Representatives. Wow, that's still one of the greatest honors that I've ever had in my entire life. And he was so kind to me. Here all of you have been freshmen, and when you first come into this body and this building, it's a little bit imposing. And when I, as a freshman, met with my new speaker, Ruben Valdez, he actually appointed me as vice chair of the Rules Committee. Now, how many of you know what a Rules Committee was? Yeah, it had a lot of power in those days. And here I am, a lowly freshman. He also, in that election, we also elected Wellington Webb as our caucus chair and Bob Kirst as our majority leader. But Ruben also appointed Leo Lucero as chair of the House Education Committee. And you can tell how important that has been for all of us as Latinos, because education has been so important to us. I will mention that even though Ruben was the very first Latino Speaker of the House, we have had Hispanics in the state legislature since the founding of this state. We served in the territorial legislature. My great-great-uncle Felipe Baca was in the territorial legislature. He represented the area in Los Animas County. And we also served in the first state house and the first state senate. So we've been around a long time, but we had never had anyone like Ruben Valdez serve in this body and be elected and honored and admired by his fellow legislators to the extent that they would elect him president or chair, speaker of the House of Representatives. I will also confess, Representative Gutierrez Gonzalez, that I also got Ruben mixed up with your grandfather when I first met him. They were both very handsome. I was also very fortunate, for Irene Jordan, his aunt, allowed or made arrangements for me to go visit Ruben about a month or so before his death. And Amber and April and Peggy and all of you have been so kind in sharing him with us. And it warms my heart that you're still here and you're going to still be here working for our community. And I know that the entire family is going to carry Ruben's legacy on to the future, because he truly was a great man and continues to be an inspiration for our entire community, our state, and our nation. Thank you so much.
I'm going to make time for the senators who were former state representatives so they can get back. Senate President Leroy Garcia and Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You can see old habits. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good afternoon. And on behalf of the Colorado Senate and several of our members who are here joining us today, including Senators Gonzalez, Senator Zenzinger, and Senator Hansen, and Senator Danielson, to all the many friends and family, we send our sincere condolences, our deepest love and admiration for such an amazing leader, Speaker Ruben Valdez. I had the great honor to meet and know Ruben well over the years, and like so many of us here, we know that he invested in each of us. The unique thing is he invested in what he believed was important for Colorado. He invested not only in people within this building, but so many others outside of this building. I remember having lunch with him regularly when I first arrived here at the House, and even before when I was on City Council. And he was just such an amazing person. There's no doubt that Ruben made a meaningful impact during his tenure and will be sadly missed.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and happy birthday, Mr. Speaker. Speaker Valdez had a lot of amazing qualities. Some may say the strongest of those qualities was he never felt the need to go to the Senate. But I am a lesser man. Speaker Valdez was not only a mentor to me, he was a friend. And when I decided very, very briefly to run for Congress, Speaker Valdez was one of the first calls I made. And when I asked him to be my campaign treasurer, he immediately said yes. And colleagues, the only good thing about running for Congress is that I got to spend an afternoon with his family. And I got to know them more. And just to see how proud he was of his family. They meant the world to him. I was blessed to be a part of their family briefly that afternoon. And I will miss Speaker Valdez. He was an institution in this building, and his memory will live on much, much longer. Thank you, colleagues, for taking the time to honor his memory today.
Mayor Webb.
What a special place this is for all of us that have had the honor to be elected, for the memories that we cherish and for the memories that we cherish when we leave that are so important, and the friendships that we develop while we're here, and for the issues that we fight for. History also provides us the opportunity to provide for tradition. The tradition for Ruben Valdez and I started way back in the 1960s, before many of these legislators were born. He worked for Operation SARE, I worked for Job Opportunity Center, and we shared the same goal of trying to find jobs and employment, primarily for minorities, and through the WIN program and through Model Cities programs. We met We bonded about the similarities we had and also our interest in politics. Ruben ran for office 2 years before I did. He was elected to the Colorado House. I was elected 2 years later, and when he called me about running for Speaker, I obviously said yes, I would support him for Speaker. But I was also most impressed with not only his ability to work on both sides of the aisle, I was impressed with his toughness. He was tough enough to say no to the people in his own caucus. But he was passionate enough to say yes to people on the other side of the aisle in trying to bring both sides together for the betterment of the state. His values were always the same, about making the state a better place. There was never a question about him promoting the opportunities for, depending upon the era, whether it be Chicano, Hispanic, or Latino, empowerment within Colorado for the history of the state. But he also had sidelines which he was very proud of. As many of you know, Ruben liked to play poker. He liked to play poker so well that he met with both caucuses, changed the law on gaming to assure that poker is a game of skill and not a game of chance, which is still in the statutes today. I was one of his co-sponsors on bilingual bicultural education. But what most important is, I never saw with Ruben, he would always fight for people, not just on their ethnicity or their gender, but whether he thought that the issue they were fighting for was right. We had many interesting laughs because when we were not in the majority, Joe Shoemaker was chairman of the Joint Budget Committee, and he put in the calendar that he was going to kill 126 bills on Monday, and 2 of them would be leftovers, Ruben's bill and mine. Ruben's bill on bicultural, bilingual education, my bill on eliminating IQ tests as a status for determining where kids would be placed in school. Polly, if you remember, we met, election was in November, we met the day after the election in Nick's Bar, where most great politics has taken place. As we've watched Hamilton and watched all the historical dramas about 1776, we know the Constitution was written in a bar like the Declaration of Independence. So it's not unusual that the Nick's leadership for the Colorado House would have been done the same way. When we left Nick's, we knew that David Gayon and Morgan Smith would be on the Joint Budget Committee. I would be chair of the Democratic Caucus, Bob Kirsch from Pueblo would be majority leader, Ruben would be speaker, and I would also be chair of the Health, Welfare, and Institutions Committee. When Wilma decided to run for election to the House, in which she later served 13 years, Ruben was one of the first ones to stand up. Our careers mirrored each other in that we both supported the peanut farmer from Georgia who no one thought would win. And we both were appointed by Jimmy Carter to the federal government. He went to transportation, I went to health and human services. And then we both returned to work for Dick Lamb as governor, he working in the Department of Labor and me working in the Department of Regulatory Agencies. And we always wondered why Dick Lamb appointed us, since we both walked out on Dick's his inauguration after his staff said he couldn't find an African American to serve in the cabinet. Some things take a long time to change. He was treasurer in both my campaigns for mayor, of which all three were successful. But what I'm most grateful for is, one, the opportunity, like all of you, that I hope enjoys what the people of your district have allowed you to do, and that is to be able to be elected and come here and represent their interests. Because all of you come from different districts. And Ruben was always fond of finding out how you can get one person to support you on this issue and one person to support you on another one. And I'll close on this one. Waldo was from Olathe. I used to always ask Waldo about how many bills he was carrying. He said one, and that was one too many. They're trying to get rid of bills in his part of the state. But I always relied on his judgment. And so when I think of Reuben, I think of a time period that is long past. One that not only was he a fighter for his family, and like Wilma, there was never any question, no matter how much Reuben thought he was Speaker, Virginia was in charge. And we all knew that, Fran. Same way you all know Wilma's in charge. So it's, so not only was Reuben a fighter for the Latino community, he was also a fighter for the black community. He's a fighter for the Asian community. He's a fighter for the community of aging. He's a fighter for women. He was a fighter for fair play. And he would stand up, even if he was by himself, to say, I think you're wrong. And that's what I remember most. Reuben had the ability to stand up and say to even his friends, I think you're going in the wrong direction. And I think it's important as we talk about the legacies of people, that not only we talk about all of those great things of their attributes, but some of those attributes that made them special. Those attributes that made them special and made people want to identify with them. So he was the first Latino speaker. And the other thing Madam Speaker did, which is probably not appropriate, I don't know if you guys have a time limit on how long you leave the voting machine open. The first time the Martin Luther King bill passed was in 1975. Reuben Valdez was Speaker. We were on third reading. I had 32 votes. 2 votes changed on me. Reuben left the machine open 15 minutes. I guess you don't do that anymore.
Good to know.
He left the machine open 15 minutes in order for me to browbeat whoever I could find to be that 33rd vote and send that bill to the legislature, over to the Senate, where it promptly died. But I know that that on behalf of Wilma and both myself, we've always considered the Valdez family a family that is very special to Colorado. He's just not a Latino hero. He's a Colorado hero. He's a Colorado hero for all of us. And he walked this earth at a very special time, which helped build this state. And it is an honor for me to have worked with him. It was an honor for me to call him friend. And it was an honor for me to serve with him.
Representative Chavez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's been 18 years since I've been in the well, so it feels good. I have countless memories of Reuben, even as a kid, but I want to share just 2 quick stories with you, my favorite stories of Reuben. The first being, you probably recall in the paper, every year there's sort of a highest paid lobbyist list. And I asked Reuben one time about being on the list, and he said, you know, I didn't create the list, I didn't write the list, but if there's going to be a list, I want to be at the top of the list. He was a good man. The second being, when I was elected in 94, January 95, we were sworn in. My brother was a photographer for the Denver Post, so he was here taking pictures for our family, and the Post hadn't sent anyone to cover opening day, so swearing in, so they used his film, and of course I came out on the front page of the paper. And the next morning, Reuben is standing at the doors with the paper, and he says, seriously, you hired your own photographer? He's a good man. I'll miss him very much. Thank you.
Speaker Ferrandino.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning, everyone. You know, I met Reuben, or Speaker Valdez, in 2006 when I was treasurer of the state party, and I was helping out on the coordinated campaign for Bill Ritter. And the first time I met him, and just walking in the room, and everything I remember was just always about how we're going to get this done, how we're going to get people out to vote, all about West Denver and turning out West Denver, and just the passion and the caring he had for making sure people were enfranchised and voting. And then I got to know him more over the years. When I got elected to this body, when I became speaker, he was someone I could always call and ask a question. And he'd give me his unvarnished opinion. When I was doing things right, or when he thought I was doing something wrong, he would tell me. And I think then after I left here, I've gotten an opportunity to work with him twice. One, when we made him co-chair of our Bond and Mill campaign and our efforts to get community engagement. And we had a meeting when we kicked it off, and I remember this vividly. We were talking about like, what are the buildings we're gonna do? What are the issues we're gonna get done? And we finished the meeting, and this was well before like anything was on the ballot. He's like, okay, so how are we gonna win this election? And I had to remind Ruben that, okay, we're in a public building. We'll talk about this later at lunch when we're not getting paid, when I'm not getting paid by DPS. But he always cared about the campaign. What are we gonna do? How are we gonna win this? And then I remember the day we named the campus in West Denver after him, the smile on his face, how proud he was. And he's such, as people said, such a humble man. He really was, and I think if you think about him, he's a workhorse, not a show horse. He did such hard work and never asked for credit for it. It's something we could all try to emulate around him. But he was so proud, and it was such a great day. The thing I remember the most is the next day, he's like, okay, there's a problem in the building with this issue. Can you go deal with it? And I would get random texts from Speaker Valdez being like, okay, I heard this in the building. Can you go fix this? And he was just so dedicated to the students. It wasn't about his name on the building. It was about how do you make a better life for those kids? Always just working so hard to make things better for the people he served. We are going to miss Speaker Valdez, but his legacy continues. And if we all were more like Speaker Valdez, just doing the work for the people we serve and less about the show, we would be a better state.
Speaker Romanoff.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It is really hard to spend 5 minutes in this building, let alone 5 decades, without earning a cross word from someone, unless your name is Ruben Valdez. He was a gentleman, and I'll miss him a lot. Speaker Valdez inducted me into the Democratic Speakers Club, which I doubled by joining in 2005. I'm glad to see there are more members now. And he became a friend and a mentor and a supporter in every race I've ever run. There is a phrase in Spanish that says, "Dime con quien andas y te diré quién eres," which means literally, tell me who you walk with and I'll tell you who you are. You can see Speaker Valdez's legacy reflected in the members who stood before you earlier, and I'm grateful especially to Representative Valdez for introducing this memorial. You can see his legacy in the former members who have shared their thoughts with you, and especially in the family who loved him so much. Cesar Chavez once said, "Real education should consist of drawing the goodness and the best out of our students." What better books can there be than the book of humanity? Speaker Valdez was a man of deep humanity and compassion and wisdom. He is in many ways, or was now, a living antidote to everything people hate about politics. And his lesson for all of us, I hope, will serve as an inspiration for decades to come. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members.
Representative Groff? No. Speaker Dick Neely-Hollinghorst.
Madam Speaker and members and the family of Ruben Valdez. First of all, it's an honor to be here to speak on my dear friend's behalf. I almost hate to say how long we have been friends, and I say have been rather than were friends, because he will be a friend in my heart forever. And I know that's true for all of us who knew him and loved him. I was honored to meet him when I was just a lowly, I think I may have been chair of the Boulder County Democratic Party or doing something like that as a volunteer in about 1972. And I was so impressed to meet him, just as a legislator. And I could tell right away what a wonderful gentleman he was and how much he respected everybody and listened to them, and we had a good conversation, and I remember it from 1972. I guess that would be, I would like to say well over 40 years, but I think that's almost 50 years ago. And then we became very good friends when we both represented the uncommitted delegation from the 2nd Congressional District in the 1976 National Convention. And we both held out quite a while before we committed on that one, and we ended up supporting, of course, Jimmy Carter for president. And then he, at that time, was Speaker of the House, and I was deeply honored at that time because it was the first Speaker of the House I had ever known and met or had a chance to talk to, as you might imagine, being a Democrat. But to me, that was something, just this side of being God, being Speaker of the House of Representatives. And I had deep respect for what he did, for what he stood for. I still do. Bilingual, bicultural education. Education in general for kids who really didn't have the opportunity they should to succeed in school, and he worked so very hard in so many ways on that issue, and he has received some great honors for that, and well deserved. So I will be very brief, but I just had to sort of relay a little of that history and tell you that he was, in fact, a gentleman, a gentleman of the time, and a gentleman always, and I will remember him that way.
Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and it is indeed a great honor to be back in this august chamber with so many familiar faces. And while the moment is sad, but the memories are great, it is good for us to reminisce and to think of the history that's been here, the way it used to be, the way it is now. Things of ancient history, like there actually used to be Republican speakers of the House, little things like that. I wanted to come down here today and remember Speaker Valdez because he was a teacher to me, and that's my profession. I thought I should be the teacher, but he actually taught me many things. One of the things that used to happen in this chamber was that the lobbyist would send you a card in if they wanted to talk to you. I know they just text you now, but they actually used to send in cards. And I was appointed mid-session on a vacancy committee. I know many of you know exactly what a vacancy committee is. And I was appointed on a vacancy committee mid-session. And the very first time that I was chairing the committee of the whole, and as Representative Singer pointed out, eyes wide, not really knowing what you're doing, and very nervous. And I think I did a bang-up job, but I returned to my desk after that, and there was a card from former Speaker Ruben Valdez in saying, may I see you in the lobby? So I was like, okay, this was after a pretty nervous experience. I'm going to go meet Ruben Valdez, former Speaker of the House. And so I go into the lobby, and he looks at me and goes, Andy, not Representative Kerr, he goes, Andy, you look great up there, holding that gavel in your hand, and I wanted to give you a few compliments and pointers up there. So for the next 10 minutes, he gave me one compliment, which was my tie.
which I'm wearing today, and I still remember. He gave me one compliment, and the rest of the 10 minutes was the pointers he pointed out. But he was the only person, and I remember this, my former caucus mates, he was the only person that day that actually said, good job up there, and I can see you in this profession and doing this in the future. So that was one of the things he taught me. He also taught me humility. And one of the reasons I'm here today is that he was a constituent of mine out in Lakewood. And one day I was out knocking doors, looking at my list, and there is Ruben Valdez. And I'm like, oh, no, it couldn't be. Knock on the door, and obviously it was former Speaker Ruben Valdez. And he was nice. He invited me in for a glass of water on a hot September day. And I was like, oh, you know, maybe I could talk Ruben into either helping me knock a few doors or get April and Amber out and helping knock a few doors. And so I broached that subject. See that smile that's on his face up there? That was the smile he had as he laughed at me and then pointed to his Bronco tickets that were laying on the counter. I remember that very vividly. That was the exact smile on his face as he laughed at me and said, yeah, we're not going to be able to make it right now, but you know, maybe next weekend. So with that, he taught me humility as well. So with that, I just wanted to say, in April and Amber and the entire family, we're so sorry for your loss. We're so honored to be here. And we will definitely remember Ruben Valdez for many years to come.
Speaker McNulty.
I don't have mine. Thank you, Madam Speaker. And a lot of talk has been about the 1970s today. And Mr. Majority Leader, I'd like to thank you for bringing us right back to the 1970s by reminding us that, yes, at one point volunteers actually did have to lick stamps and put them on envelopes to put them in the mail. The memorial today says to pay tribute to a man who served the state well and faithfully. And that perfectly exemplifies Speaker Valdez. He served this state, he loved this state, and he never finished serving this state until his final days. They say that a measure of a man is in the quality of his children. In this case, that quality passed all the way through to his grandchildren. Amber, I know that this session will be different for you, but I know that he has faith that you will carry on the work that has to be done here. For my part, it was late in the session, 2011, late at night. I was coming up from the governor's office, coming right through here, up the stairs and across the rail over here, and somebody grabs my arm. And I turn and look, and it's Speaker Valdez. And he says, "It's not as easy as you thought it would be, is it?" He smiled, I laughed. That moment meant something to me then. I carry it with me today. He was a man who was always there, always quick with a joke, always quick with a smile, but always knew the principles for which he fought. That mattered then, it matters now, whether you're Republican or Democrat. Know the reasons for which you're fighting. So, Mr. Speaker, rest well. Know that your legacy and your positive influence will carry on. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Representative Groff.
I just had to do that. That didn't exist when I was in the legislature. We just had to, stand taller. Madam Speaker, members of the House, thank you so much for this opportunity. Some of you may not remember, you used to have memorials without former members showing up because there was a concern that with term limits, nobody would remember the person that had served. And so it was a great opportunity for people that had served with that individual to come back. Clearly, that wasn't necessary today. There are so many of us that have great memories of Mr. Valdez. I'm humbled to be here. What a great group I have the opportunity to participate with. And I'm not sure my ideas are any greater or more influential, and I think I loved being here just here. But I'm going to conclude with just a couple of thoughts. Ruben Valdez, state legislator, Speaker of the House, Carter Administration Administrator, heads of 2 departments of state, influential lobbyist, political activist, father, grandfather, loved one. As many of the representatives here and people that have been at this microphone today related to you, you would need to take these public accolades, these public accomplishments of his, and multiply them exponentially to really talk about the man that was Ruben Valdez. There are so many lives he has influenced, either directly or indirectly, through his life. I had the honor to be one of those people. I was speaking with a colleague after Ruben's memorial service, and we had the opportunity to reminisce, and this colleague actually came up with the statement that I think best represents Ruben. He was never one to really look for the public recognition in his actions. He was personally committed to the better for so many. Ruben Valdez was a quiet warrior. Would that we all be remembered as such. Thank you so much for your time.
Are there any former members who would like to speak? The House will come back to order. The motion before us is the adoption of House Memorial 1002. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The motion is passed. Representative Valdez.
Madam Speaker, I move the current roll call of the House be added as co-sponsors.
If there's no objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors. Representative Valdez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This time I would like to introduce the family we have in the chamber today. We have Speaker Valdez's 3 children, Trish, Peggy, and Ruben. Everyone, please stand. We have his grandchildren, Brandy, Amber, April, Miranda, Jay, Selena, and Jack. And there's many more family members watching today on TV, so thank you.
Members, we're going to do announcements and introductions, and then when we recess, you can say hello to the members, but I don't think we have that many more announcements and introductions. Representative Catlin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's an honor to serve with you.
It's an honor to serve with you.
Colleagues, I wanted to come down here and thank you for the support that you've given me in my mom's recent passing. She was proud of me for being here. And I'm proud to be here. And I'm proud of the people that I've gotten to know. I'm proud of the people that I've gotten a chance to call friends. But that would not have been possible without her. She was one tough little cookie, believe me. I said to a member this morning, she kind of reminded me of a piece of barbed wire because she was awful hard to get down. She fought very hard. She fought very gallantly. She showed me a lot of things, but her toughness was one of them, and she did it very gracefully. She was a classy person, and I'm very proud of her, and I want you to know I thank you all for the cards, the notes, the flowers, the prayers, the texts, the things that we can do for one another today, nowadays. And it was nice to see old-fashioned feeling, caring, and wanting people to know that you care that came through. Thank you so very much. And You know, the next time you look at a little piece of barbed wire, think about my mom. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Catlin. Any other announcements or introductions? Majority Leader Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Just one quick announcement. Remember, members, that the Legislative Legal Services will be delivering your bills up to the desk for Wednesday's bill introduction deadline. If you want your bill to be delivered directly to you instead, please ask the drafter by 5 p.m. on Tuesday, and then the responsibility will be on you to get it in on time. And with that, Madam Speaker, I move that the House...
We have a couple items of business, and Representative Michelson-Janae.
I just wanted to remind you that we have Cancer Caucus at noon in the old Supreme Court chamber. So if you'd like to come and have something to eat and have a good conversation, 10 minutes.
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I know Representative Landgraf already mentioned this morning, but we hope to see you at History Colorado tonight, 5 o'clock, the Kemp Center, the place that was the innovator of the understanding of what it is to actually solve the issues of child abuse and neglect across the country is right here in our backyard. Don't miss your opportunity. History Colorado today at 5. We'll hopefully see you there.
Reports of committees of reference.
Committee on Public Health Care and Human Services, I the Mayor's the Committee House Bill 1006 be amended as follows and necessary to be for the Committee on Appropriations favorable recommendation. House Bill 1028 be postponed indefinitely. House Bill 1050 be amended as follows and necessary to be for the Committee hold favorable recommendation. House Bill 1122 be amended as follows and necessary to be for the Committee on Appropriations favorable recommendation.
Signing of bills, resolutions, and memorials.
The Speaker has signed Senate Joint Resolution 4.
Majority Leader Garnett. You know,
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House stand in recess. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to lay over the balance of the calendar until Tuesday, January 28th. And I move that the House stand in adjournment until Tuesday, January 28th at 9 a.m.
seeing no objection, the House will be in adjournment till tomorrow, Tuesday, January 28th at 9 a.m.